It's time to see the whole picture. They're agile, they're majestic, and they're back. Big Cat Month, all this month on Wild.
Afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to National Geographic Wild's launch of Big Cat Month 2022. My name is Ndogo Zombuli, and I'll be your host for today's launch event. I'm really looking forward to welcoming our esteemed guests, Beverly and Derek Jubal, onto screen today as we celebrate these prolific filmmakers. But first, let me talk you through a few housekeeping and admin elements for today's event. Invited guests will have access to our guest questions at the end of the session today. Your mics are automatically muted, so please don't worry if you have any noise in the background or anything like that. Simply type in your questions in the comments box, and we'll ask that you ask as many of your questions as we can later on in the session. Viewers of the National Geographic Wild channel also had a chance to pre-submit questions via our Facebook page, and I have those at hand, so we'll do our best to get those answered too. If you're joining us from home via the Facebook and YouTube channels, thank you and welcome to you too. At the end of today's event, I'll also be giving away 2 of these beautiful coffee table books. They're filled with stunning photographs taken by Beverly Jubal. Here's the other one. As we know, Beverly is an incredible photographer. These books have content that's created by both of them. So please do pay attention to the presentation, as you'll need to answer a few Big Cat related questions in order to stand in line to win one. So let's get to why you are here today. It's the 11th annual Big Cat Month 2022, and it kicks off this weekend with a roaring content lineup. It's made up of films every Saturday and Sunday from 6 p.m. on National Geographic Wild. National Geographic Wild is available on DSTV channel 182 and Starsat 221 throughout the month of February. Viewers can look forward to a month of programming dedicated to the fiercest felines, creatures of magnificent strength, ferocity, and beauty, and as we know, some of which face extinction. I love that Big Cat Month is filled with visually impressive and powerful stories from around the world. I love that it's filled with cats from lions, tigers, cheetahs, leopards. I love leopards. But what I especially love is that it also features some of the most unknown and forgotten cats, such as the serval, the African wildcat, the caracal. And this Big Cat Month, we will place the spotlight on our guests for today, the world-renowned local filmmakers, Derek and Beverly Jubal. They have various reversioned and selected new films from them. And before I introduce them, let me show you a quick video clip of them doing what they do best, capturing magical moments, immersing themselves in nature, and if their TED Talk is anything to go by, immersing themselves in water as well. They use their deep understanding of wildlife to tell stories that inspire people around the world, and this is how it all started for them.
Passion. I'm not sure we have passion. It's more like obsession. Obsession for each other, for Africa, for the wild things that surround us.
We came out here following a dream. It was about each other, about exploring, flying over the greatest place on the planet.
Beverly and I came out here 30 years ago, looking for adventure, and what is arguably the greatest story in the world, the story of life.
And we couldn't have done that without that passion.
We've come to know intimately even the smallest things.
It's about capturing the moment and protecting big cats.
And sometimes it's about taking a deep breath and stand in your ground.
That video gives me goosebumps, and it actually just shows the passion and dedication of these two filmmakers. Before they come on screen today, let me give you this introduction. Derek and Beverly Jubal are world-famous, award-winning filmmakers, conservationists, and explorers from South Africa. As National Geographic explorers at large, they founded the Big Cat Initiative that now has over 150 projects across 29 countries. All of these are focused on protecting large cats. One of their most recent films, Birth of a Pride, highlights the vision of the Big Cat Initiative, and it's won 19 awards, bringing much awareness to the global project. Another one of their films, called Tribe versus Pride, also ties into the Big Cats project as a story. It's told from the point of view of the Maasai, who are grantees of this initiative. And I personally love Tribe versus Pride. And I remember specifically being the one to hand them their SAFTA awards when they won for that film. Their mission for over 40 years has been the conservation and understanding of the large predators in particular, and other key wildlife species that determine the course of all conservation in Africa. The Jubals have produced over 35 films for National Geographic. They've published 12 books, half a dozen scientific papers, and have authored many articles for the prestigious National Geographic magazine. Their talks around the world are often sold out in minutes, and their TED Talk, which I alluded to earlier, has attracted millions of views. Among their, now wait for it, 8 Emmy Awards from 23 Emmy nominations, a Peabody, Grand Teton, Golden Panda Awards, World Ecology Award with Prince Charles, Sylvia Earle, and Richard Leakey, and the Mervyn Jones Fellow Award from Lions Club International. It is the Presidential Order of Merit given to them by Botswana's president for the conservation work that they do that stands out the most for them. We've established a conservation and tourism foundation, the Great Plains Foundation, and its sister company, Great Plains Conservation. Right now, they manage over 1.5 million acres of wildlands in Africa, and that holds an estimated 2 to 3% of Africa's elephants, lions, giraffe, and other wildlife. My favorite thing about them is that they work together, and they often, if you've listened to any of their talks, you'll hear how they often make jokes about how one gets into the other's space. I love that they co-produce every single film that they make. Derek writes and does the cinematography, while Beverly does all the sound. Beverly's also a photographer. She's an acclaimed photographer for National Geographic, with exhibitions being seen from London to Sundance, Johannesburg to New York. One of their early films, Eternal Enemies, Lions and Hyenas, is estimated to have been seen by over 1 billion people across 127 countries. In 2015, a single talk of theirs in Beijing went viral online in China and was followed by 195 million people. The later TV interview One-on-One with Yang Lan was watched by 200 million people. A referendum to ban all ivory trade in China was presented to the president in April 2015, and in September that year, President Obama and President Xi met and discussed an agreement with China to ban all ivory trade. That is just like how it's incredible, the work that they do and how it impacts. The Jubals' efforts as filmmakers with the Big Cats Initiative, Rhinos Without Borders, the Great Plains Conservation coincide with one aim, which is to save wild places of Africa and to protect the creatures that depend on them. They use their social media platforms to continuously advocate current conservation topics and concerns, and they also raise funds to further their conservation efforts. The former president of Botswana, President Ian Khama, said it well when he said, "Theirs is a lifelong passion for each other, for big cats, and for Africa. They are true children of Africa." So this year in Big Cat Month, viewers across the world will get to see multiple films produced by Beverly and Derek, including the premiere of the much-anticipated The Way of the Cheetah, which is their very first film on cheetahs. This fascinating film detailing the planet's fastest cat premieres this Sunday on National Geographic Wild. So let's welcome Beverly and Derek Jubal onto screen. Hi, Beverly. Hi, Derek.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you, and Kozo.
That's great. You're talking about fierce felines. You look like a fierce feline yourself.
Thank you. I'm celebrating big cats. I'm probably going to do so the entire month. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. It is such an absolute honor and a privilege as we launch National Geographic Wild's Big Cat Month 2022. We are thrilled to have you with us today. I'm particularly excited, and I'm excited to hear more about your careers as filmmakers, where it all started. I mean, I've been following you guys for years and years, and I'm sure a lot of people that are here today share that sentiment, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing what you have to offer this Big Cat Month. You have multiple films in this year's celebration of Big Cats, and I'm so glad that your wildlife storytelling continues to reach a global audience. You guys are incredible. You know, thank you for everything that you do. So I'll now hand over to you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That's glowing, and I'm pretty sure that you've said everything we need to say. So I think we're done here.
Well, what we really, first of all, want to say is thank you, National Geographic Wild, for opening this up so we can illuminate big cats. It is vital. It is the time that if we don't look at protecting them right now, we are going to lose them. But let us go onto a share screen so we can show you how we started in the early days, and then, of course, the films that are going to be celebrated on this Big Cat Month.
All right, so we're going to keep this fairly casual, and we'll rather give time to questions and answers afterwards. And so basically what we've done for Big Cat Month is assembled some of the work that we've done over the years, remastered it entirely, added some new programming into it. And we want to talk you through some of those programs, some of those films, why we did them, what we discovered while we were doing them, and why and what they meant in our lives. So the very first one is Eternal Enemies. And you were talking about this a little earlier on, saying that we'd reached over 1 billion people. And if only each one of them had sent us just $1, we would have been so much happier today.
Well, definitely the protection of the cats would be so much happier. But this is really a little bit of a time walk. We started, in the early 80s into the 90s. This film took a long time in the making, over 6 years. And it's 6 years of nocturnal work, so serious sleep deprivation. You can see in our faces, we're totally exhausted in the sort of first light of the morning. But that's what we did night after night. We followed them. And of course, we had incredible neighbors from hyenas that were incredibly curious about our vehicle. And every now and again would pop their head into the vehicle and steal Derek's light meter, or we would have lions lying very close to us. But it was extreme conditions, and we want to, with each film, give you the big reveal.
And so if this is what I looked like at the beginning of the project, imagine what I looked like at the end of the project. But the big reveal is that we discovered this nocturnal behavior, this absolute battlefield between lions and hyenas. And I think that's what the world had never seen before. They actually thought that lions were out there at night and they would periodically run into a hyena, but there was a back and forth between these big clans of hyenas, 40 at a time, and prides of lions. And I think that's really what engaged us. And in many ways, it became a metaphor for gang warfare that people were talking about around the world at the time.
Then the next film is Eye of the Leopard. Eye of the Leopard is really an intimate look at the behavior of leopards. And it absolutely captivated us. It truly was a love affair all the way. The behind the scenes, though, were very interesting, weren't they, Derek?
They were, because we were spending so much time with this young leopard Obviously, we found her when she was just 8 days old. And you can't see it on here, and maybe I can point it out now, I can't. But we identified her by one tiny spot in her whisker pattern, and we spent so much time with her as she grew up. Obviously, that spot, you can see it between the first row and the second row there, that one spot that dropped down. And trust me, we spent so much time with her, I counted all her spots, and she has 840 spots, this particular leopard. Day after day, we're sitting with her, not doing very much. But we most certainly had a very intimate relationship with her.
We truly did, and it really was a love affair. In fact, at times, we felt like we were surrogate parents because she totally accepted us in her world. And when her mother chastised her and made her move off into her own territory, she just rolled over and looked at us to say, oh, well, don't worry, I've got those little human parents over there. But the big reveal of Eye of the Leopard is that leopards are truly individual personalities, unique characters, and then, of course, this moment that the world had never seen before, where she brought down the mother, and the mother had a newborn baby baboon, and without killing it, she picked it up very gently behind the scruff of its neck, and for hours lay playing with it and nurturing it and keeping it warm. But of course, it was the fate of the baby baboon not being able to get mother's milk, and that's really what ended its life. So living with big cats, because we had felt hopelessly in love with her, and after being in America editing the film, we received a message saying, you really should come back because there's a leopard lying under your vehicle in the car. And this was happening periodically. So of course, we had to go back. We had to go back and find out what was happening to Lachadima.
This is a scene from that film, and we generally don't like to get out around animals, but in this case, I was out filming and she surprised me. But she came up to the camera here and found another leopard inside the lens. She was looking at her own reflection and started this play behavior, patting out at the lens and trying to touch and solicit play with herself in many ways. But we got very, very close to this animal. And in fact, one day when we were sitting with her, Beverly jumped into the back of the vehicle to make some tea, and Lachadima got into Beverly's seat. And we realized then that perhaps not only were we crossing a particular boundary, but so was she. So as is shown in the film, I switched on the fan and the heater, and the warm air blowing into her ear was very much like her mother's hiss. And so she jumped out of the vehicle and never did it again.
And then, you know, living so close to her, it was very, very hard to leave once again. But of course, we had to finish living with big cats. And our big reveal in living with big cats is that over the time that we made the two films, 4 years, we realized and did all our research that we were losing cats at an alarming rate. And the leopards, 10,000 leopards had been legally killed through that period, through CITES permits. And that's just the legal amount. What about the illegal amount? So we knew that leopards need to have our voice. And that's really when we started the Big Cat Initiative at National Geographic. And of course, Lachadima became quite well known around the world. She became a leopard. She became an ambassador for leopards.
Our next film that you'll be watching through the month is Relentless Enemies. And here we set out really to investigate how these animals were behaving on an island in the Okavango. And that involved us following them, and you alluded early on to the TED Talk where, in fact, we drowned this vehicle and a good number of other vehicles. And that was because we had to follow these animals, these lions, as swamp cats, going through the Okavango day after day. And you'll notice one thing from this particular image, in that the driver me, is in the water, and the passenger, Beverly, is standing high and dry. And I wonder why that is exactly.
Well, I think I truly have, just like lions, leopards, and cheetahs, I've learned the art of survival. But these lions had adapted to water. So that's one of the big reveals, is these lions were quite comfortable in water because they needed water to hunt. And they started using water to their advantage. They would already work out where buffalo were going to exit, and they would ambush the buffalo. But the other big reveal was that the buffalo were the lions were dependent on the buffalo, and the buffalo started to retaliate, obviously, for their own survival. So it was an interesting battle, and that's why we call the film Relentless Enemies.
It's interesting as well that as Beverly says, the interaction between the lions and buffalo you usually think would end badly for the buffalo, like it does in this amazing shot of yours here. But what we discovered also in there is that this massive herd of buffalo, 1,200 buffalo, as the lions hunted them and brought one down, the herd, instead of running away to the far side of the island, learned that the safest place to be was where the lions were actually feeding on a buffalo. And so they adapted very quickly to this predation.
But of course, we had started researching and understanding lions in a semi-dry area, and then, of course, in a swampy area like the Okavango. So now looking at lions again on a path, a migration path with the elephants, was really interesting because they were going from a river to semi-dry and then through tiny little water holes and back to a river. And so Ultimate Enemies is an investigating the relationship between lions and elephants and how unique it was, but how interesting it was through this time because everything started to change and lions started to hunt the elephants.
And as you can see here, the first thing I do when I get a new vehicle is take a saw to it. So cut the body off, take the doors off, take the roof off, and then put canvas all around. So that means that periodically when we get attacked, and we've now been attacked by elephants 4 times, I think, it can get a little bit hair raising in there. And so our vehicles first have to suffer the indignity of me cutting them in half, and then getting bashed around quite a lot by elephants. But the first thing that we discovered here was that the lions were circling a particular water hole, and this is something that nobody had ever seen before. They would through a certain season, they would move into this water hole and wait and watch every elephant herd that came in, and then very quickly we realized that they were learning to hunt baby elephants. And that was a major turning point in that relationship between lions and elephants.
So that really is the big reveal, is that lions started to hunt elephants. Nobody had seen that before. It was really seen the first time when we brought out Ultimate Enemies. But we also realized the incredible altruistic values that elephants have, and that you can live very closely to them if there's no threatening or challenging elephants. But they also had this morning ritual that they would do when they came across one of the elephants that had been killed by the lions. And they would stand there for hours just investigating, and it really felt quite emotional as they would mourn their dead.
And of course, the even bigger reveal in this film was when we came across a 21-year-old adult elephant and a pride of 10 lions, and they circled this elephant and jumped on it. And there's a scene within the film that actually ends well, so don't shy away from it. But a scene in the film where there's this massive battle between this big female elephant and these 10 lions, and she gets away from him. And then later on, we discovered also that even the big bull elephants, like the one you saw in the previous image, are not immune from being attacked by lions. When we revealed this, nobody had ever seen this behavior before, and we got tons of letters from scientists saying, not quite sure how you set that up, but that's impossible. And I think that's the value of National Geographic, is that it is this platform for authenticity that changes the narrative in the world.
And then really it was where we were in a particular time where we had been celebrating and enjoying and understanding the adventure and learning all about the big cats. But then we started to see that there was a problem. Looking back, we realized that over a 50-year period, 95% of these cats were declining. And really, we were also losing their historic range, about 80% of their historic range. So through the making of Living with Big Cats, we were living very close, in close proximity to lions. Sometimes they were even underneath our vehicle, trying to keep cool through the heat of the day. But the researching aspect was key with Big Cat Odyssey.
So what we'd found out during this process, because we were getting more and more involved in the understanding our subject, was that when Beverly and I were born, there were 450,000 lions. And by the end of this film, there were 20,000 lions. And if we put that in context, of those 20,000 lions, a massive, as Beverly says, 95% decline, the male lions only comprise about 4,000. And so when hunters come out and start shooting these male lions, they're not shooting from 20,000, but they're shooting from a gene pool of about 3,500, 4,000 male lions.
And then, of course, with leopards, they went from 700,000 over a 50-year period down to 50,000. And it's really hard. That is an estimate because it's impossible to count leopards. But what we do know is that everybody loves a leopard skin. And so they would like a real leopard skin, you know, as a status symbol. And that's in the West, the East, and of course in rituals and religious ceremonies in Africa. So leopards are ill-fated with the most incredible fur, and it's really up to all of us to now start celebrating them, but alive, not dead.
And there's a way, as you dress today, and as is Beverly, there's a way to honor and to celebrate that pattern without using real fur, obviously. So when we were born, there were 700,000 leopards, and now there are fewer than 45,000, 50,000 perhaps. And similarly, where cheetahs have gone from 45,000 down to fewer than 7,000. So we're very concerned about all of that. But that's why we do what we do. And our films now have changed in many ways from being a celebration, like this cheetah that you see in here now, to a phase in our lives where we're really just trying to assemble the science around this and the declining numbers, and now into advocacy, where, as you spoke earlier on about forming the Big Cats Initiative, with a whole lot of projects across the world, 150 projects across 27 countries, 29 countries, and really doing what we can to save these animals while we can.
And while making this film, what is important to know that in the Mara ecosystem, it has about 200 odd days of rain. So that means a lot of flash floods in the rivers, a lot of bridges washed away, as well as one of our camps washed away. So, you know, we were constantly getting stuck. It seems to be our constant, both in the Okavango and in the Mara Plains.
Is this a cheetah or is this a hobbit?
That is a very wet cheetah. But what the big reveal is really their ultimate focus, their speed. I mean, their speed truly is like the wind. The way of the cheetah is a perfect name for cheetahs, because they are very focused and almost samurai in their way. And then, of course, the other big reveal, other than the females being incredible mothers, but mortality rate, you know, is high, is the time that we worked with the 5 brothers. That was a coalition. That was pretty phenomenal and very unusual, because it's not brothers from one mother. It would have been individual male cheetah coming together and creating a coalition. And again, that would be for their survival.
But Beverly talks about that focus and the way of the cheetah. Whenever I write a script, I write it based on some kind of inspiration. We recently did a film on the Okavango, which was inspired by Dante's work. In the past, with elephants, I was inspired by Carl Jung. And in this case, I was researching samurai culture, because for some bizarre reason in my mind, and you may or may not agree with me, but these look like samurai. They are so focused. When you see a cheetah on the hunt, it's those eyes, which is what this series of photographs by Beverly reveal throughout this talk, is really the eyes. And if you look at predators and you want to understand these big cats, look at their eyes. And I think that's what it's all about.
So now we would like to show you a piece of the iconic moments in each of the films. And perhaps Adrian will show that to you right now.
A lifetime of working with big cats has led us on an extraordinary journey with deep insights into what makes them what they are. It's the hunting, that explosion of energy. But that's only a part of who lions really are, or what leopards do.
This adventure has seen us working day and night, following the animals we've come to love, producing over 40 films, publishing 14 books, and thousands of articles. But most of all, it has turned us into ambassadors for big cats.
There are classic moments, some of the most popular or watched on television, and some that took our breath away as we filmed them. This one, from Eternal Enemies, seen by over 1 billion people, now after 30 years remastered with new music, narration, and where the old shots didn't hold up, we cleaned and restored with new technology or replaced entirely.
There is no replacing hard work though, the long hours, this incredible lifestyle. And I think being courageous also plays a part as we follow into the deep Okavango behind the swimming lines of Jubal, where we got stunning images, but also where we get stuck almost every day.
There is so much excitement in being allowed into their world. We did this thoroughly in Relentless Enemies, another of the popular and now restored shows in this series.
Lachadima's life story, from birth to death, absorbed years of our lives following this leopard daily, which led to one of the most extraordinary scenes we've ever filmed. When she hunted a baboon and it turned into a massive surprise for us, for the world audiences, and I think for her too.
What we've discovered is the strategy that all big cats display. Like a moving chess game, best seen from the air in this scene.
And of course, stitching this together into a film needs sound, which is one of my jobs on this two-man crew. But being such a small crew means we work harder, but when it comes to bad times, bad weather, accidents, and just life, it's really just the two of us to cope. We show this in Living with Big Cats and Big Cat Odyssey.
We get close, or rather they get close to us. And I think this trust we build up is because we're always there, rain or shine. And of course, the most extreme of this was with Lachadima in Eye of the Leopard, which didn't need much remastering because we've already started working with Jeremy Irons, who is the voice of this entire series.
The most extreme hunting we've ever seen was the massive battles between lions and elephants. This shocked the world, and our film Ultimate Enemies completes the series. It is heart-wrenching, but also a story of hope and survival, and the scene has become a symbol for us and all our work in film, in conservation, and with the Big Cat Initiative. This series, a collection of Big Cat work, is all about that hope.
Sure. Oh, how amazing. You know, what I love about what Big Cat Month is going to be able to do is that it's going to show audiences all of your films again. So for those of us who've seen them, get to celebrate them again. And for those who haven't seen them, get to see them for the very first time. And I mean, with films like Eternal Enemies, where it's been remastered and redone, that's just going to be so exciting to watch. What I am particularly excited about, Beverly and Derek, is that a big part of Big Cat Month is that we're going to get to see the premiere of The Way of the Cheetah, which is a film about a cheetah called Imani, a sleek female with 4 new cubs that need to navigate the vast plains of the Mara ecosystem where they live. Now, this is the first time that you've ever made a film about cheetahs. I mean, you haven't done so until now. What is it about Imani that stood out to you, or what drew you to her?
I think that there's a purity about cheetahs that's quite amazing. Anybody who's followed big cats, they each has a different personality or character. You'll see that lions are probably these big, robust, iconic animals in the savannah. Leopards are these ghosts in the forest. But there's a certain laser-like purity to the cheetah. And Imani was one of the best examples of that. And the way that she was protecting her 4 unbelievable little fluff balls.
Absolutely. And then, of course, she really is responsible for them, very much like a leopard. The female goes off hunting, the female nurtures them, the female feeds them, and so do leopards. With lions, it's very social. So I think we often, I know I do with leopards, I see as a leopard more individualistic, and so are cheetahs. And I think that's what we loved. We did that comparison and we really loved it. But of course, they're not arboreal, they're not in trees, they're out in the open savanna. But the other part of cheetahs is we felt that hopefully this is a story of hope. There are less than 7,000 cheetahs left on the planet. And if we could illuminate them to the point that here they're surviving in one area and very successful, and yet they have challenges, and they also have challenges with man and ranches and cattle moving through. But if we don't threaten animals, we don't challenge them, we can live side by side.
So you mentioned in your talk earlier that your filmmaking has gone sort of from a celebratory point of view of wildlife and the natural world to something that is more of an advocacy. And in the way of the cheetah, it is said that, you know, cheetahs have faced extinction twice because they're genetically similar. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So sure. The last genetic bottleneck happened about 12,000 years ago. So there were once a lot of cheetahs, and they collapsed, made it through that, collapsed again, and now they're going through this phase now where, frankly, they're probably going to collapse one more time, because at 7,000 odd individuals with a genetic variety that's very, very narrow, a simple cheetah-specific flu or virus will just wipe them out altogether. It's ironic, though, that our work started as celebration, then as science and getting into it more, and then into advocacy. And it seems to me that the solution, the advocacy conservation solution, at least starts with celebration, right back where we started. Unless we love and fall in love with these animals, and I hope that people will fall in love with Imani and her 4 cubs in this film. But unless we've fallen in love, we're never going to save them.
Before I ask my next question, I just want to remind all the guests that you are very welcome and free. And I actually encourage you to please ask questions in the chat box if you have any questions for Beverly and Derek. But Beverly and Derek, also in the way of the cheetah, we see a male coalition of cheetahs where 5 male cheetahs work together in a kind of a band of brothers. And you talked about it a little bit in your talk now, but how do these coalitions form, and do female cheetahs ever operate in this way?
No, so female cheetahs, sorry, I'm just going in with no straight away on the female side.
Wrong question.
But females don't. Females are individualistic, and they need to be for, you know, the mating and then bringing up their cubs. So no, they don't. But for the males, the only way that they really can survive a very strong male that is now has taken over a territory is create a young coalition. So that's why it would be a whole lot of young males. And then, of course, this one was quite phenomenal because it was with one older male who was really probably being challenged, but really battling. And then, of course, 4 other younger males. And they moved off together. Maybe the younger males were learning from the older male, and they formed this coalition, and they were highly successful. They pretty much took over the territory of all the single males in that area for a long, long time. We've since lost one of the males, but we finished the film just before the pandemic closed down all borders, and that was in 2020 in the February. That's when we finished shooting, and then of course went into editing through the next phase of 2020.
I'm always fascinated by, some of the things that you've had to endure to make these films possible. A lot of people have followed you, we've listened to you speak, and even now, this afternoon, you've talked to us about how you've survived elephant attacks, and you've had to, live around that. And particularly you, Beverly, you've survived serious injuries from a buffalo that attacked both of you in 2017, and you spent quite a lot of time recovering from hospital. And this year, we're also going to get to see your film Relentless Enemies, which chronicles how buffaloes strategize their advancements and how lions react to each and every move they make. I've seen the film, and it's an epic story of how these two species survive while adapting to each other. How has the buffalo attack affected the way that you approach buffalo from a filmmaking perspective?
Thank you for asking and bringing that, to a situation that happened to us. But I need to say from the very beginning, it was a freak accident. Derek and I have been in the field for 40 years, and sure, we've had close situations. But this one was a wounded buffalo. We had no idea that he was wounded at the time, and we didn't know that he was in our vicinity, around our camp. And we moved from one tent to the other, and of course he surprised us. And I was in hospital for 3 months with many broken bones, 27, and rehabilitation was about 8 months. So once Derek and I were back together, we went back to Duba where it happened, and we wanted to spend time with the buffalo, hoping that we were still accepted, both emotionally ourselves, but also the place. And we straight away filmed and photographed their horns. The horn went right under my arms, through my chest, and ended up in my face. And so the horns were really important to understand, and just to be around them again, so that they weren't going to be, this fearful creature. And so right now we have carried on, filming very close to buffalo, around buffalo, but we still have the same respect we had for them then, and we still have the same respect for them now. It wasn't the buffalo's fault, and when somebody said, oh, this buffalo needed to be shot, we straight away said, no, it wasn't his fault.
Yeah. So we have quite a few questions from some of the guests, but before I move on to asking those, I just want to remind you that there are 2 beautiful coffee table books that are to be won. I showed them to you earlier, and the questions that I'm going to ask for you to win these books are: the first one is that of the 3 main big cats that we have in Southern Africa, which are lions, leopards, and cheetahs, of which are they the least left in the wild? So of the 3 main big cats that we have in Southern Africa, lions, leopards, and cheetahs, of which are they the least left in the wild? So if you answer this one, type 1, and then type your answer in the chat box. If you answer the next one, which is question 2, I'll give it to you. It's: what do leopards use as a marker to guide their cubs? That's what do leopards use as a marker to guide their cubs? If you're answering question 2, you then type 2, and then you type your answer in the chat box. Please, guys, no Googling, please. So to move on to some of the questions from the guests, there's a question from Karen DeToy. How much time do you spend in the wild?
Well, it's changed a little bit through COVID and through various other things we've got going on. But generally, if we're on a production, we'll be spending 300 days a year in the wild at least. that means nearly 2 months out of the wild, and that's heartbreaking for us. There's a great moment when we were doing Eye of the Leopard, where we had worked with this leopard for just over 3 years at that time. And we packed up camp and we packed the plane and we said goodbye to the leopard. And as we were putting the last things in the plane, we heard a leopard call nearby. And so we unpacked the plane, got everything, and we went out again for another month or so. So it's hard to give up these things, you know, but a lot of time.
Yeah, the pandemic has been the longest time we've been out of the field.
And then Andrew wants to know, obviously there are dangers out in the wild where you film, and you seem to be mitigating those really well. What are some of the difficulties that you experience when you're filming?
Gosh, there's so many different situations. So, for instance, in Jubal, we would wake up at 4 in the morning, and the first thing we had to cross was a deep river. And the bridge was very rickety, and we would have to then drop into the swamp water, and the water was already up to our waist. So, some of us, yours.
Up to one of our waists, and your shoes, maybe.
Yeah, and remember, this is 4 in the morning, could be winter time, so freezing. So Derek would often strip down, cross, I would be up on top, and then get dressed, try and get warm, and we would start the day trying to track the animals that we were after. In this particular situation with the lions, and we would then have to find the buffalo, because we knew that the lions would be very close to the buffalo. So we would have to use all our bush techniques and skills, to find them. Then we would be out the whole day, maybe 18 hours before we go back. Now that's in the heat of the day, mosquitoes in the swamp water, being wet, whatever it is. Then get back, have to download everything that we had filmed, if we were lucky enough to film something. Sometimes there are many hours of cats just sleeping, and recharge all the batteries, flop into bed, get a couple of hours, and then we would start all over again. So the challenges are immense, a lot of physical challenges, a lot of emotional challenges when you're seeing an animal being harmed. Anything else, Terry?
Well, yeah, so be careful not to try this at home, because over the years, I've been stung by scorpions 21 times. I've had 18 bouts of malaria. We've been hit by elephants 4 times. We've had 3 buffalo attacks. I've been bitten by 3 deadly snakes that apparently weren't deadly. And I've crashed 3 aeroplanes. But other than that, it's been really easy going.
So you talk about a cat with 9 lives. We feel like we've surpassed that. But what is the most important is we do not interfere. We do not, intervene in any situation that is happening in nature. And we are very respectful to the animals. We feel that is ultimately important.
Yeah. Genevieve wants to know what might have happened if Imani had been more receptive to the 5 brothers' courtship.
Well, immediately the cubs would have been killed.
Yeah.
And so it's not in the interest of males to adopt cubs. So what males do generally through the predatory world, lions, leopards, cheetah, is they have an instinct to kill all the cubs and then start the breeding cycle all over again. So those 4 cubs would have been gone. The big danger of that coalition really is that they're like a big wrecking ball. They'll go through female territory after female territory, kill all the cubs, and in some cases kill the females as well if they resist. So I think she did the right thing. And, I think all mothers do the right thing when it comes to this. The big danger as well is that if it becomes too tricky for them in the territory of the big males, the coalition of males, they leave. And then that pushes them out of the national parks and protected areas into villages, into civilization, and the dangers there are even greater.
And we were actually very pleased that we could unveil Cheetah at nighttime, because it's really known that cheetahs are very sedentary during the night. And here we saw that Imani was moving her cubs. If she saw danger, she was walking and moving through the night. But yet the 5 males were very active, and they were constantly marking, and they were not necessarily active in the hunting, because if a cheetah makes a kill at nighttime, they are bound to lose it and probably get seriously harmed by hyenas and lions. So they don't normally hunt at night, but we were surprised how active they were at nighttime.
And then the question from Tashi, why is it that the cats and other animals don't attack you when you're filming?
Well, that's interesting, because that entire list I just read to you, that you'll notice doesn't include getting scratched by big cats. Generally, and I'll say this with some caution, but generally the big cats simply want to get away from people. They're not aggressive, they want to move away, and all of those things that have happened to us have been our fault. In particular, the elephants, we've ended up rounding a corner and coming into elephants and having them attack us. The buffalo was probably our fault.
It's a surprise element.
Mm-hmm.
We've surprised an animal, not knowing that it's there, and surprised it.
And so when it comes to big cats, lions in particular, I think it's because when we're around big cats, we have a rule, and that it's eyes on the cat. So we never both turn our backs on the cats at the same time. We're always watching, just in case.
But the cats are never nervous of us. They're never scared of us, because we don't have a threat value at all. We're normally quite invisible. We're sitting there very quietly and very respectful to them. And I believe animals are really very quick to understand if a human is a threat to them or if a human is not. And I believe that we have been seen as not a threat to them, and also not food to them.
And then a question from Liani Janse van Rensburg. Over the decades, your films showcase incredible cats and their individual stories of resilience and bravery, such as Matsumi from Eternal Enemies. Which of those cats often comes to your mind, and what did you learn from them?
It's interesting. I think that we learned something from every cat.
Yeah.
Matsumi in particular was a lioness who had a terrible run-in with a spitting cobra, and Kitty's cobra, and that killed all her cubs. But within 18 days, she was mating again, and she pulled through. She was bitten herself, and she pulled through. We'd kind of written her off. And that resilience, a little bit like that elephant in that clip that you saw, that never give up resilience is, I think, what we take away from all of the cats that we're with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you see the eyes behind us, little Lachadima. She really was so unique and such an incredible personality. But then when you stop and think, well, they all have to be. We were just very privileged to get to understand this one. Just understanding her and the amazing situations we had with her, where she would greet us in a different way. She knew that I was an individual, and it's very different to Derek, and these beautiful eyes would look up at me every morning, and she'd go under the car and she would tap Derek's foot, because as you saw, we didn't have doors, and then she'd go off and do her thing. So we had this wonderful balance between human and cat. And being a wild predator is so unique to be able to have that balance. And so I think her personality truly will live with me till the day I die.
But it's such an interesting question now that I've got a chance to think about it while you were talking. Because I wanted to say that while we're often put in a box of being wildlife filmmakers or storytellers, photographers, that's not really what we do. What we do is we tell stories that are parables for life, for human life. And the stories that we draw from the big cats are really stories that serve us personally very well in our lives, like Never Give Up. And you can And the other thing I would say about living with these big cats is there's not a single one of them, until right at the end, not a single one of them that doesn't show up every single day and do what it does with an intense focus and dedication. And if anything at all, that's what I'll take away.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for speaking to us. Thank you for answering our questions. Now I think it's time to give away these lovely, lovely books. Let me just show them to you one more time. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. Now, the winner for question 1, who answered question 1 correctly, the answer was cheetahs. So the question was, out of the 3 main big cats that we have in Southern Africa, lions, leopards, and cheetahs, of which are the least left in the wild? The correct answer was cheetahs, and the winner was, or is, Danette Breitenbach. Congratulations, Danette. You are going to get one of these beautiful coffee table books. And for question 2, our question was, what do leopards use as a marker to guide their cubs? The answer to that question is the white tip at the end of their tails. And there is no winner for question 2 because nobody got it right. So we are going to give the book to Nokuthula Khumalo, who also got question 1 right. So please listen, Derek and Beverly, can you explain how it is that the leopards, can you explain how it is that the white tip, that they use the white tip at the end of their tails as a marker to guide their cubs?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll hand over to you for that because I have no idea. But what was really interesting was we were with Lachadima, and the perfect example of this, we were with Lachadima when she was adopting us in many ways. We were spending a lot of time with her, days at a time, when her mother was off hunting. And then the mother would come back and call, and the little leopard would run away. And I remember one day she ran away to her mother, then came back for us to call us to follow. But most certainly when she was with her mother, you can see the way leopards move because they are designed to be impossibly invisible, except for that white tip on the end of the tail. And then they flick the white tip up. The cub knows exactly where the mother is and can follow.
Absolutely. And there's another time that they use that white tip. If they're hunting in the forest or out on the savannah and they're trying to be ghost-like and not be seen, and all of a sudden an animal calls out, an impala, gives an alarm call, or another one calls out, and all of a sudden the leopard realizes it's been seen. She just raises her body, lifts the tail, and very casually moves along with this tail moving as if to say, don't worry, I'm just here, and on she goes. So she uses that tail in many ways, and another time she uses it if she has the cub needing to be entertained at the den. Her tail will be this constant movement so that the cub focuses on the tail, and that's how I believe the cub realizes to focus on the tail. It starts off very young, and then of course she tries to catch it, and then later on she always knows where her mother is when that white tip is raised out of the grass.
And so there's another personality or character type that you can add to your resume. I know you already qualify as a fierce feline, but possibly a seductive fierce feline.
I must say, you guys are incredibly fortunate to live the life that you do, and to be able to see, big cats like leopards, which are so hard to see in the wild. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for being here, for speaking to us, for answering all our questions, and to all our guests who are here, and to people who are viewing through the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. Thank you too for joining us, and remember to tune into Big Cat Month with the fantastic films about big cats, some of which that we've had presented here today. Those films will be aired every Saturday and Sunday on National Geographic Wild from 6 p.m. throughout February. And I will end off today's event by showing you the magnificent behind-the-scenes clip of one of Beverly and Derek's latest films. We've talked about it quite a lot today, The Way of the Cheetah. It will premiere this coming Sunday at 6 p.m., so please don't forget to tune in. And please follow @NatGeoAfrica on social media for regular updates. Thank you again, everybody. Take care.
Tear-streaked hunters create tension across the plains. The 5 males. Cheetahs are the shadow hunters. Unleashed at 70 miles an hour, this incredible speed leaves no room for mistakes. And now the brothers are working in unison, collaborating to win this immense battle. The cheetah's way is usually to yield to that good night and walk towards tomorrow. While it's not the way of the cheetah to fight a fight you cannot win, just handing over a kill is always hard. Out here, the possibilities are boundless, because this is the Masai Mara.